Today on Rambling About Cars, Ford GT's sunset is almost upon us. There's a new AMG A-Class to talk about. What's going on in California with the Elantra N? Electric 911 sales figures. We've got a lot to talk about. We're shifting gears a little bit from what we had planned. So without further ado, it is podcast time. I am Christopher Smith, and Mr. Chris Bruce is across the way. Just Chris Bruce is across the way.
I am here. So as we teased last episode, we intended to have a guest for this episode. Some things fell through. You know, people kind of get under the weather. Things happen. So
it's still going to happen.
Yes.
Still going to happen.
We're just going to reschedule that person for the future. But instead, you get Smith and I's lovely faces and annoying voices for tonight.
And my annoying ass blank background. I'm moving in a couple weeks, folks. The new Smith office will be wonderful. So bear with me on my just white background with my hats hanging back there. But only if you're on YouTube, watching us on YouTube, Motor One Podcast, where you can go and like, follow, subscribe, all the good stuff, to see what we're talking about. And we do have quite a bit to talk about this week. Let's start with the final edition of the current generation Ford GT. Bruce, do you know a little bit about this?
I do know a little bit about this.
I haven't jumped into it wholly at this point. But
so these are, and let me I believe it's the final 20, but I will double check my numbers here. Yes, this is the final 20 examples of the Ford GT, and this is the LM edition. LM stands for Le Mans. And so these cars wear their liquid silver paint, as you can see here. It's kind of a titanium finish is what I would call it. It almost looks like a brushed metal. And then with blue accents kind of along the lower fascia and the side sills and things like that. It's a really sexy look. If you had to wait this long to get your Ford GT, the wait was kind of worth it because I love this look with black wheels. Am I wrong here?
No, you're not wrong at all. And I like it because obviously Ford, they've done quite a few heritage editions of the GT.
They have several.
And I mean, they're cool, and they certainly pay homage to some legendary people, some legendary vehicles. But I'm not really a big fan of having a race style livery on my vehicle. And this is just, it's subtle, but it's different. It stands out. And this is coming from somebody that generally doesn't like silver or shades of gray. I like colorful vehicles. But this just works with the black contrast. It just works for me. I think it's a great way to send this supercar out.
Yep. And so speaking of titanium, which is kind of how I refer to this finish, like I said, Ford calls it liquid silver. It's not really silvery to me. Colors are subjective. Everyone kind of sees things differently. But you've got like a little bit of bronze, maybe a little bit of gold in here. But the reason I mentioned titanium, this one has titanium lug nuts. And also painted Brembo brake calipers. So Ford seems to know that there's a kind of a titanium finish here. One of the most interesting things, and unfortunately I can't expand upon this because I don't think Ford really expanded upon this, is that each car of these 20 LM editions comes with a little piece of the Ford GT race car that raced at Le Mans in 2016 and placed third place.
Actual bits.
Yep. I don't know how big that bit is. I can't answer that for you, but a bit of that car is in each one of these.
Just to reiterate, the actual car. It's not something that's molded on or recast from the actual car, correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
And so the way that happened is kind of even funny. Ford took those little bits. They ground down the race car's crankshaft into a fine powder, and then they use that to 3D print the instrument panel badge on these cars. So whenever you're driving around, you've got just a little bit of a race car in your street car. That, I mean, it's a gimmick. Like we have to admit that's kind of a gimmick. It's the third place car at Le Mans in 2016, but it's also kind of cool. Like if it were just that, it would be dumb. But the fact that, in my opinion, these cars look kind of cool with that they have that titanium finish, those little blue accents, and the fact that this is basically the end of the line. Okay.
Oh, the Ford people that are
I'm on board.
Yeah, the Ford people that are into this, the Ford people that want the GT, that are really into the GT, the history, the pedigree there. I mean, you could say it's a gimmick. I'm not sure I would say it's a gimmick. I would just say it's a nod to, hey, we get that you are paying a lot of money for this car. We get that you're excited about the car. So we're going to do something.
And you waited this long for one. You are one of,
special.
Maybe you got one early on, but certainly these are some of the last that are coming off the line. So it makes these final cars a little bit special, and that's cool. That's worth, that's worth making a little bit special. I tried to think of something more clever there and couldn't.
I think the car speaks for itself. Of course, having the 3.5 liter twin turbo V6 with 660 horsepower, that's pretty special too. I know people, there's still kind of that line of, it's the V6. It should have had a V8. It doesn't sound as good. I think it's hogwash at this point.
Agreed.
The engine has established itself. It doesn't have the V8 sound, but it still has a great sound in my opinion. 660 horsepower. It's definitely Ford's just pinup supercar. And production ends in December. And will there be another one at some point in the future? Nobody knows. We haven't heard. Right. We haven't heard anything plus or minus on that. Whether there'll be another internal combustion version, whether there could be an electric version, we'll just have to wait and see. But for now, this generation,
this is it.
This is it. And then the total production, I think, is what? It's going to be 1,350, something like that.
I thought it was 1,250. Let me double check that. 1,350. I'm sorry.
Okay. Yeah, because I know they adjusted it a little bit right off the bat. But I mean, it's still, that's a very rare car. When they brought it back, for 05 and 06, I mean, there's I think a little bit more fanfare with that. Of course, Ford surprised everybody by basically bringing the original car back, although it looked like the original, completely different machine underneath.
Totally.
And then Ford really surprised us with this second gen. I still remember, Bruce. I remember when this debuted at the Detroit Auto Show.
I was there.
And everybody was like, the new Acura NSX is going to be, oh, wait, there's a new Ford GT?
Yeah.
And poor NSX was just like forgot.
Well, no, because if you remember, that wasn't the first time they had shown the NSX. Like, we had seen like teasers and stuff like that, whereas Ford just showed up and said, here it is. It was completely, this isn't a teaser. This isn't a concept. This is the car. And we're going to start producing it in, I forget if it was a year, 18 months or whatever, but they just stole Acura's thunder.
NSX was supposed to be like the Detroit Auto Show headline act, right?
Yep, totally.
It just suddenly wasn't. Two great cars, two great mid-engine supercars, NSX, Ford GT, coming to the end of an era.
Yep.
Well, speaking of end of, what a terrible segue that was. This isn't the end of an era. We're going to talk about the Mercedes, the updated A-Class here. We can't get this in America, but it's still a cool car. We still want to talk about it here a little bit. Our Motor1.com family, whether you're listening in the United States, Canada, United Kingdom, Europe, Asia, Australia, wherever you're listening, we try to bring you some interesting stuff. And we have the new A-Class facelift here. 2023 Mercedes A-Class hatch and sedan revealed with AMG A35 and A45S. Yes, I'm reading the article that Adrian wrote here. Just because I'm still getting up to speed a little bit on the A-Class. it's not a huge change, right? But
No.
this is a very popular vehicle in the markets where it's sold, especially in AMG trim. The headlights are redesigned a little bit. You've got some slight changes to the grille. At the back, there's a new diffuser. LED taillights are standard.
Well, let's get into the powertrain tweaks, because I think that's what really people will notice.
Yeah, well,
and they're minor. It's not like, oh my god, it makes 8,000 horsepower.
So I mean, we still have the 4-cylinder, right? But the everything has the mild hybrid treatment. AMG has tweaked it so there's a little bit more power that comes in down low. They're saying the 48-volt tech, it offers an extra 13 horsepower at the start, but overall horsepower levels haven't changed. That means 302 horsepower in the A35. That means 416 horsepower in the A45S, which is no longer the most powerful 4-cylinder you can get in the Mercedes lineup. Now that the new C-Class AMG is out, that's 470 horsepower, Bruce, I think, in the new AMG C63S with its 4-cylinder hybrid setup.
If we're just talking about the engine, maybe I think total it's more than that. Let me double check now.
That's right. I'm just talking about just the engine there. Talking about just the engine. So yeah, still 416 horsepower in the A45S. There's a new style edition that offers visual enhancements.
So not to interrupt you, but real quick, the 2-liter turbo plus the electric motors and the electrically assisted turbo that the C63 has, that's 671 horsepower.
Yeah.
So that's a healthy bit more.
That's a bit more. The 4-cylinder alone in the C63 is 470 horsepower, whereas 4-cylinder here in the A45, still we're talking 416 horsepower from a 2-liter engine. That's just turbocharged. Stupid. It's turbocharged like crazy. I wish Mercedes would bring this over, across the pond, because I know there wouldn't be a huge market for it, but I think it's just one of the coolest hot hatches you can get out there. Of course, they also offer it in sedan format. What I was saying earlier, the new street style edition, it's just some visual pizzazz to the AMG A-Class there. Painted in mountain gray mango. Sorry, not mango, Magno. I'm actually
which is kind of their version for
right now. That's why I'm seeing mango. Magno.
Right, which is
that makes a little more sense.
It does. It's like a satin metallic finish is the way it's not shiny metallic. It's not matte. That's why I call it satin. It's somewhere in between.
It's a very satiny finish, just sort of a grayish satin, with some very bold AMG graphics. Of course, once again, you can see what we're talking about at Motor One Podcast on YouTube. But for the audio listeners on Spotify, Google, wherever you're listening, we'll do our best to describe what we're seeing here. I mean, it's a facelift. It's fairly minor. Honestly, I don't see. I mean, there are some differences, like we said, with the headlights, with the grille. It's not rocking the world, but having a little bit more oomph down low with that with the mild hybrid setup, that's going to get you going a little bit quicker. I don't think there are any appreciable differences in acceleration. The A45S 0 to 60 3.9 seconds, which that's fast. That's fast for anything. Never mind a little hot hatch. But yeah, that's the updates for the new A-Class on the AMG A35, A45S. Again, we do not get this in the United States. Mercedes, you can send one over. It's okay. I won't tell them.
We don't know this yet. I would wonder whether we eventually get this powertrain in the CLA 45. We don't. This is just, we don't know that yet. But it would make sense at least for them to do that. So maybe down the line, that's something Americans could hope for. But no, we don't get the A-Class here, so we're not going to get this model here. But if they're making those upgrades to the version in Europe, it's not out of the question that they wouldn't do it to the CLA 45 here. that we have to wait and see, but it's not out of the realm of possibility.
Right. And yeah, I mean, that's the latest from Mercedes. What else do we have to talk about here, Bruce? Do we want to shift maybe a little bit? Because listeners, you're used to hearing us talk about, some of the new vehicle debuts, some of the more exciting things like that. We don't always talk about some of the more oddball automotive news stories that we write about. And I mean, there's a lot that we write about, Bruce.
Totally.
There are so many different topics.
I believe Motor One is, I'm fairly certain we're over 100 posts a week. I think it's over 120 posts a week, if I'm not mistaken.
Right. So, and we're not getting 120 new vehicle debuts a week. So
no, we are not.
So, I mean, that means we're writing about everything from, interesting engine swaps, which we might talk about.
We'll talk about later on this episode.
A little bit later. To curious stories like this one. And we came upon this at Reddit. I'm sure there are a lot of listeners out there that are Reddit members, follow Reddit. There are some interesting stories that pop up. This one caught our attention. It's about a Hyundai Elantra N owner, brand new 2022 Elantra N owner in California.
I want to give credit where credit's due here. You're right. It came from Reddit. I was the one that suggested this to us, and a former person I worked with, Chris Pockert, I saw it. He posted it on Twitter. I saw it from him, suggested it to our chat. We saw the Reddit thread and went from there. So full disclosure, Chris Pockert is kind of the genesis of it getting eventually to us.
And once I saw the story, I was like, wow, okay, we have video footage here of dash cam from the car, along with the Reddit post with some documents posted by this owner. We don't have specific names, things like that. No. And for
which is good because of privacy reasons. People don't necessarily want that information getting out.
Very, very much. And we're going to try to play this down the middle.
Totally.
Long story short, the video shows the Elantra N owner being pulled over.
Right.
Officer comes
up. This
up.
person has a dash cam, and it sounds like him. If this is totally me guessing, it is a guy and his girlfriend, maybe wife, in the car. He has a dash cam on as he is getting pulled over. Mm-hmm. Smith, take it from there.
And the officer comes up and just says, ask, hey, why is your car backfiring? Officer proceeds to tell him, that's too loud. You're not allowed to drive with a track mode or anything like that engaged. The officer then,
which is already maybe an issue, but okay, we can go from there.
Could very well be an issue. Obviously, the Elantra N has N mode, there's sport mode, there's normal mode, and we know it can get a little loud. I mean, I don't think it's egregiously loud, but I mean, California has certain laws in place. The officer just kind of lays into the guy and says, well, I'm going to suspend your vehicle registration. You're going to have to go to the state ref and get it inspected. They're going to send you back to the dealer, and they're going to have to take your track mode off, which I don't really know how you take away the software for track mode.
Right. Keep in mind, this is a stock vehicle, and the guy...
Yep.
It's been a few days since I've seen the vehicle. I want to say he said it's been 3 weeks since he's bought the car. Put it this way, it's a 22 model year, and it is a new purchase for him. So
brand new stock Elantra N.
Right. It's not like
he does say that hey, I took it back to the dealership. Dealership confirmed it's stock. Anyways, the officer says, well, you have to go get that removed. It's going to cost you $4,000. And then the officer said,
first says $4,000. Eventually, the conversation somehow gets to $7,000.
And then the officer says, well, if you want, you can go and sue the dealership because they're supposed to tell you that you can't drive around in track mode. Maybe you can get your $4,000 or $5,000. Officer's just tossing around all of these numbers, and the poor guy's like, I just bought the car. It's a stock Elantra. I didn't know I couldn't drive around in track mode.
Right, and that's the thing. The owner is not confrontational at all.
Right.
He is very.
I'm sorry. I can pop the hood if you want to see. I mean, I don't have anything done to the car.
That happens.
And so, he went, got it inspected, and the second part of the story, according to the Reddit thread, the instructions.
Again, who knows? We have to caveat the shit. We have to caveat. I'm sorry for using that word. We have to caveat this a lot because
we don't know California law.
Exactly.
We don't know
you don't live in California. I don't live in California. So I can't make, and I'm not a lawyer and you're not a lawyer. Right. So we can't make these assertions.
There was a Reddit user that posted what sounded like a very, very thorough explanation of how these are supposed to be tested. They're supposed to be tested using a mode of the vehicle that it automatically defaults to. Which
you're supposed to test it in the mode that when you start the car, that is the mode that you test it in.
And the testing station told him, allegedly, we have to test it in the loudest mode.
Correct.
Which technically I think would be N mode, but this Elantra owner said, well, okay, that'll be sport mode. Well, it failed the sound test in sport mode. So yeah, the station said, okay, you'll have to go get this fixed. Once you have documentation that it's fixed, you can come back, get it retested. But in the meantime, you can't, the registration is suspended on the vehicle. You can't drive the vehicle. So now he's like, okay, this vehicle is completely stock. There's nothing to fix. He goes back to the dealer. The dealer's like, yeah, it's completely stock. There's nothing to fix. So he's in limbo. And as we're recording this on Wednesday, October 5th, I was double checking the Reddit thread, and I'm trying to reach out to the person as well. The last update was that, hey, still trying to get it all figured out. I did contact Hyundai. Hyundai did offer us a statement saying that, yes, the Elantra N is legal for sale in all 50 states, and that they were working with the owner directly to try to get the situation remedied. But for right now,
if you don't mind, do you mind if I read the exact thing that Hyundai told you?
Not at all. Absolutely. If you have it pulled up, go right ahead.
Yeah.
I just gave a quick summary.
Yep. Hyundai N vehicles are sold. Hyundai N vehicles as sold fully comply with federal regulations and are legal for sale and street use in all U.S. states. Mm-hmm. Hyundai is aware of this incident and is working directly with the customer to help resolve the issue. So.
That's straightforward. So, the cars are, according to Hyundai, legal for sale in California. Obviously, different cars will have different drive modes, and some of the drive modes might be too loud for different local laws, California or otherwise. So, you'll definitely want to make sure you're following local laws when it comes to sound. This is just one of those topics where it's like, okay, this is obviously a brand new car, mm-hmm. and now the legal system that he's trying to deal with has him completely stranded because it's a new car that, according to the manufacturer, is legal for sale. And there's
according to the dealer, is not modified. So at that point, what do you do as an individual?
So what do you do? So go back and have it tested in normal mode, but he can't have it tested because he can't show where anything has changed. And they require, okay, before you can have it tested again, you have to show documentation of what was fixed. It's like, what do you do? And it's one of those frustrating things. And I want to be clear too. I know people will have opinions on the officer's conduct.
Yes.
I have a lot of friends that are in law enforcement. There are good people, there are bad people, in every line of work. I'm not taking sides one way or the other there. I will say it sounds the situation should have been handled better, in my opinion. And as far as the testing procedures, again, we don't know California law. We're going by what we've seen in the Reddit thread, which
and from the video as well. Because the guy had a dash cam on, so we can literally listen to his interaction with the police officer.
But it's just one of those. It's one of those frustrating situations that, has a car enthusiast, it just kind of makes you go, ugh. And I'm very happy that we're able to get a comment from Hyundai on that.
Right.
And we're mentioning it here because this has been probably one of the biggest news stories we've had in the last several months. Obviously, things like this just grab the attention of auto enthusiasts, and I think just people in general, because it's just like, I mean, what's this poor guy supposed to do? He has a brand new car that the manufacturer says is legal to sell in the state. We have two potential mistakes being made on one side. You're left in the middle. So it's a bit frustrating. We are going to stick with this story and provide some kind of update as soon as something is available, because I know,
Totally.
I mean, we have comments all over the place on this story. I think it's been shared on social, like, I don't know, hundreds or maybe even thousands of times at this point. So one of those stories that, you know what, it's not a new car debut, but it's certainly auto related, and hopefully it can set an example for law enforcement and municipalities and enthusiasts on both sides going forward. So situations like this don't have to happen, because we're dealing with a brand new car here, people. Come on, right?
We're dealing with a brand new unmodified car, at least as far as anyone,
we should say allegedly there.
Right. We have to just
we haven't
cover
inspected
things,
the car, right? We haven't inspected the car, but I mean, he's posting up, hey, it's stock. He's posted up saying, yeah, the dealer has confirmed that it's stock. He's posted up, some documents from the test. So I mean, there's no reason to really believe it's not.
Correct.
And that's just some of the interesting side stories that you'll get at motor1.com from time to time. Of course, you want to go to motor1.com for all your news stories, automotive related and new car related, used car related. Of course, you're listening to Motor One podcasts on audio platforms. You're listening to Rambling About Cars, I should say, on audio platforms, Spotify, Google, Apple, all the good stuff. You can also go to YouTube Motor One podcast. I'm a little off my game today because I was really looking forward to our special guest. That's going to come next week.
I know, buddy. Same here.
Or hopefully next week, or possibly a few more weeks on the road. We'll get it taken care of. But we've got some more fun, interesting stuff to talk about.
Yep. Can I throw you off a little bit by calling kind of a slight audible and shuffling some of the stories we were talking about? Do you mind if we talk about the Dart thing first? Only because I feel like the transition is a little bit better.
Yes, we should absolutely talk about the Dart thing first.
Okay.
It's not just Dart related, though. It's sales related.
It is.
Because this week, obviously, we're into October. That means the third quarter of 2022 is already done. Can you believe it?
I cannot. This year feels like it just started.
Right. And we're in the last quarter of the year. So the end of the quarter, a lot of automakers report their sales on a quarterly basis. Some still report month to month. But
thank you, Ford.
Yes. At the end of each quarter, we'll take some time. We'll go through the sales stats. We'll see what's interesting. Of course, probably the big news, Ford F-Series, still the best-selling truck in the United States. It's extended its lead a little bit over Silverado, but Silverado and Ram they're neck and neck for second place. So it's hard to say how that's going to shake out at the end of the year. On the car side, Dodge Challenger still outselling Mustang.
No, don't spoil that yet. We're still going to talk about that, man.
Well, we're getting through sales stuff, right?
I know, but
all right. Jump to the fun stuff. What's going on with
the weird stuff? Let's say
the Dodge Dart coming back? No, it's not. But
no, it's not. No.
but
Dodge sold 3 of them during the third quarter of 2022, which is hilarious because this is a vehicle that retired in 2017.
It's like the zombie of zombie cars.
Yeah, they had already sold one other one earlier in the year. They sold one in Q1, and then they sold 3 of them in Q3, which, okay, maybe this is like super nerdy, super like insider baseball car stuff, but it's hilarious to think. So this, if you think about it, this is a car that has been gone for, what would that be? 5 model years, probably 4 calendar years. And there are still a handful of them
They're
sitting in the back dusty part of a dealership somewhere. I just imagine these vehicles like they're just been like magazines and like old clothes and stuff like that laid on them. And someone walked in, they're like, what's this? What is this?
Or
and they found them.
There could be dealers that were just holding on to them. Saying,
for that long? Why would you hold on for anything that long?
These have been discontinued. I still think it's kind of a neat car. You never know. There could be somebody that was a big fan of the original Dart, has a dealership.
No, Smith, no, those people don't exist.
It's entirely possible. What's interesting here, one of the things we usually search for are zombie cars, and we're not just saying because we're into October and Halloween is coming.
No, that's just
common. Yeah. Occasionally to see a car that's been discontinued for a few years pop up as a sale, especially if it's something really special like Viper.
Stellantis has sold one Viper this year.
Yeah,
and again,
and special cars like that.
Did they stop was that a 2018 or 2019?
It's somewhere around there. I mean, it's been a few years, but a Viper, hey. Dealers just holding on to that for their Halo car. It's sitting in the showroom. They're going to keep it for a couple of years.
Someone's wiping it with a diaper every week, something like that. But a Dart, no one loved these cars when they were new, but somehow 3 people this quarter bought them.
I test drove a Dart as soon as they came out. I think that was back in 2013, and I really liked it. I really liked it. So maybe that's why I'm a little optimistic. I thought, hey, you know what? This is a pretty neat car with a manual transmission. It was kind of zippy. I mean, it wasn't really like the original Dart. Obviously, I mean, it was a modern take. But, I thought it was kind of a neat car. I thought, it doesn't look that bad. I thought it had
They never looked that bad. They looked like they looked very good for their class, especially if you compared them against a Corolla or a Civic at the time. I think I could make an argument that the Dart was a more attractive from the exterior vehicle. Clearly, a lot of people disagreed with me because they eventually, discontinued them. But if you're looking at it on this image, if you're watching on YouTube, I don't think that's an ugly car by any stretch of the imagination.
Oh, I don't think it's an ugly car at all. I thought it was comfortable inside. I thought I had good space inside. I thought it was, it wasn't a performance beast by any means, but
but they didn't sell it that way either.
It was zippy enough and fun enough to drive, and I was very close to getting one. I think did I get was that when I got the Mazda instead? I think, or maybe I was thinking about a new car or something, something more powerful and used, because that was right around the time when I got the Cobra. So I think. Yeah, instead of a new Dart, I think I guess
you chose wisely in that case. If your choice is
a brand new car
or a Dart, I mean,
instead of a brand new car, I just picked up, the 03 Cobra. It had pretty much the same payment.
I can't judge you there.
Probably a good choice, but the point is, car's been dead for years, and it's not a specialty vehicle. And they're still popping up for sale. And this isn't the first time we've seen this.
It is not.
You go back. I think we had Dart sales in 2021.
Yep, they sold a handful last year. They sold a handful in 2020.
So it's just like, it won't die. It's like,
I would love if we could find a dealer that still had one and just be like, why? Like. Just why is this not just a charity case? You write it off your books, you give it to, Habitat for Humanity. I don't know, whatever charity, and be like, no, I'm not trying to be mean. Like, it's like I said, it's a fine vehicle. It drives fine. It looks fine, but it's also 5 years old. Like, what person walking into your dealer is like, that's the one for me?
I think it has to be chalked up to some dealers that were just, for whatever reason, holding on to them specific. Not that they couldn't get them sold. It was just, hey, you know what? We've had this car for a year or two. Let's just put it in storage. We'll see if the values go anywhere. We'll see if there's a following that starts to develop. I mean, that's what makes sense to me. I don't see any of these sales being, oh, here's a dusty one that's been sitting in the back of the lot for like 5 years. I mean, I don't know. I guess I don't know. But
Yeah.
I like the car enough to think that I bet there are a few locations that thought, hey, this is a pretty neat car. We'll just hold on to it for a little while.
But for this long,
Well,
like
they're
2
getting
years,
sold now,
okay,
aren't they?
I'm on board. Okay, you hold on it for 2 years. We're at 4 or 5, maybe 6 years, depending on what model year. Like, at that point, what are you doing?
I mean, hey, I'm
Hey,
offering a theory from somebody that thought that the Dart was pretty cool.
and I'm not disagreeing. I respect your opinion. I want to know, hey, anyone out there, if you are listening right now, if you work at a Dodge dealer and you still have a Dart on the lot, let us know. You can be on the show. We would literally love to interview you. I would love to interview you.
Let's do it.
And let's discuss why you still have a Dart, because I legit want to know.
Where do they email?
Again, I'm not belittling the car. I think it's a fantastic vehicle for the time, but what possessed you to keep it so long? Smith, like you were saying, podcast@motor1.com is the email address. Hell, Christopher.bruce@motor1.com is my email address if you want to let me know. Like,
yeah, there you go.
I would love to know that.
That was a very interesting discovery that we made in the third quarter sales stats.
And speaking of sales, let's talk about another interesting sales thing.
The one that I a little bit. Go ahead.
Yep, and that is that the Dodge Challenger is the best selling of what I'm going to call American muscle cars. And what I lump into that list are the Ford Mustang, the Dodge Challenger, and the Chevrolet Camaro.
Muscle cars, pony cars. It's a definition that's been swappable for quite a while now. But I mean, those are obviously the three competitors. And of course, to remind everybody, last year the Challenger outsold the Mustang. Last year was the worst sales year in Mustang's history.
And so we at motor1.com, we have a thing where, once the quarterly sales come out, every quarter we put out the best selling pickup trucks and the best selling amongst these muscle cars, because that's what people like to compare. Right. And so we did our pickup truck thing, and as you'd expect, the F Series is the best seller. Like Smith said, the Silverado and the Ram, the Ram pickups, they're
very
close.
Very close. I think right now, year to date, I think there's about 18,000 separating them with Silverado. That's when you're talking about the volumes that the Detroit automakers get with trucks. Yeah, that's easily 2 fairly good months for Ram and 2 sketchy months for Chevrolet. And in fact, we did just for the third quarter, Ram barely outsold Silverado, but Silverado is still leading year to date. So I mean, there's already a little bit of a shift. So we'll have to see who's up for number 2. Ford, I think, Ford, they're comfortably in front. 467,000, I think, year to date, somewhere around there. Versus
they're a bit down for the year. Am I right?
Yeah, like they are. Everybody, I think everybody is a bit down for the year. Ford had a really good, and Ford is a company that reports monthly.
Yes.
So we're able to look at July and August and September individually. Ford had a really good month in July with the F Series. They had an even better month in August. But September, things started to take a turn, and I think they were down something like 20% in September. But overall, Ford still has a pretty healthy lead over Chevrolet with the Silverado. It's not to say that it's in the bag. If Chevrolet does really well and Ford just tanks, we're talking a pretty major swing, but theoretically it's still possible. Most likely not going to happen. But Chevrolet and Ram, second, third. And then, of course, we have the poor Nissan Titan. They sold 1,275 Titans for
That's
the
not
third
so good.
quarter.
Right.
For 3 months. So
Yeah.
the poor Titan. I mean, it's still on a death watch. Nissan has said that it's not going anywhere for 2022 and beyond. The rumors say that it's going to be dead in 2024, 2025.
But moving over to the American muscle cars, the Camaro, the Challenger, and the Mustang. And like you were saying, Ford is kind of the last of the American automakers that are still reporting things monthly, which is interesting because we can see how consistent Mustang sales are this year. And it's pretty funny. They sold 3,367 in July. They sold 3,533 in August, and they sold 3,454 in September.
That's hey, what you will. That is super consistent. It's just not as many as I suspect they would like.
Yeah, and that comes to for Q3 10,354 vehicles.
Mm-hmm.
And as you were saying, probably not as many as they would like because the Challenger kind of crushed them in terms of Q3 sales. So the Challenger sold 16,412 units. As a refresher, in that same period, the Mustang sold 10,354 units, and the Camaro just bring it up the last place with 7,922 units. And it's interesting, especially at this time. We know a new Mustang is coming out. Smith, you and I, we've done a whole podcast about it. We know the Challenger is going away, but that an electric vehicle is going to replace it. Mm-hmm. The Camaro is still the big question mark. Every rumor that we hear says that Camaro is dying, that it's going to go away. There's just still this weird rumor, and we only have one good source for it, but it's automotive news, which we generally trust, that says the Camaro name is going to come back for an electric sedan sometime after it dies. And I don't know. You know, that report's now a year old, maybe a little over a year old. So I still don't know if I can trust it, but it's such a reputable source that I can't discount it either. But yeah, it's interesting that we're kind of coming to the end of the line in one way or another of all three of these vehicles, whether it's the generation for the Mustang or possible replacements for the Camaro and the Challenger.
Right. I mean, we're looking at this year as it for the trio, because the Dodge
at least as they are currently.
Yeah, I mean the Dodge Challenger at least. I mean with the Hemi, that's gone after the year. That's well, not at the end of 2023, it's gone.
Right, model year, yes.
2023 model year, it's gone. Ford Mustang, that's coming back with internal combustion for a new generation.
Correct.
It's coming next year, so that'll still be around. Chevrolet Camaro, yeah, we don't know what its future is. It seems likely something's going to change within the next year or two at the I think at the latest. So we'll just have to wait and see there. It's interesting to note when you go back to the second quarter of 2022, Mustang sales were up a little bit, and Mustang was outselling Challenger at this point. So,
but it was close. It was, if I'm not mistaken, it was like 27,000 to 25,000 year-to-date numbers at that point.
So, you know what? Now that we've seen, okay, here comes the new Mustang, will Ford throw some incentives to try to move the last remaining current gen out the door? Mm-hmm. Will buyers go for that, or will buyers want to wait for the new gen? Interesting times to see how this is going to shake out. Being a Mustang owner, I feel like I'm probably safer to say this. It's a little interesting to see some of the comments on why Mustang is losing to Challenger sales. Well, they can't build them fast enough. People can't get them ordered. All automakers are kind of struggling with that right now, and Challenger won last year. So,
right.
Sorry, Mustang guys. The Challenger is just hitting on its cylinders right now. It's an old platform. It's an old model for sure, but
God, Stellantis must make so much money on those because of how old that platform is. Like, so much of that tooling must have been paid off ages ago. Respect
to them for trying to keep it fresh and interesting. I think I think it's proof that you don't have to change up the recipe every few years. If you have something that works, just refine it, but keep finding ways to make it interesting and fresh, and keep going with it. I mean, you could argue that Porsche has done that with the 911 for decades. And here we have the Challenger still doing very, very well in sales. Hey, is an old platform. Who cares when you still have the buyers that are stepping up, when you're still coming out with new special edition models, when you're making little changes here, when you're making little changes there, when you're adding the wide body. And yeah, you know what? Scat Pack, all of the new last call models that are coming out right now. They're doing a great job of marketing the Challenger. And I'll be sad when it goes away, but I'm excited to see the electric future at the same time.
Same. Real quick here, I want to put out, so because we had those third quarter numbers, we also know how they are going through for the year so far. So this would be January through September. Again, Challenger is leading the pack, 42,094 units, which is, interestingly enough, down 5% from last year. With, say what you will, but the Mustang, in the same period of time, 36,598 units. That's down 10.9%. And then the Camaro, they've moved 19,177 units through that 9-month period. That's a 27% jump. So,
Camaro, yes. It's not dead yet. Not dead yet. It's still not moving the same numbers.
No.
But you know what? Hey, a 27% increase is nothing to feel bad about. And if I'm at Ford right now and I'm looking at Mustang sales that have been steadily declining for years now, and I kind of hate to say that a little bit because I'm a Mustang fan and Mustang owner, sales have been declining for years. I'm really hoping that the new model kind of reinvigorates the brand, because it's a little worrisome. It's a little worrisome because last year that was the worst sales year in Mustang's history, and we're now 10.9% below that.
Yeah, exactly.
With 3 months to go.
I hadn't thought about it in those terms. Yeah, that's interesting. It's just still so funny to me that if you look at age of, the platform that are underneath them, the Challenger is so old, but yet people clearly are still buying them. If you want your 2-door muscle car, 2-door performance coupe, and you want it to be American, clearly people are picking the Challenger way more than the Mustang, a hell of a lot more than the Camaro. That, there's something about those vehicles that the age doesn't matter to people. You go out and you drive them, and it's probably because of, like we were talking about, the Hellcat and the Hemi and, all of the engine work that they've done to them and the suspension stuff that they've done and all of those last call special editions that just made the most out of what they've had.
And can we just say too that they look bloody great.
Sure, totally.
I think they still look fantastic. I mean, I think they certainly borrow a lot of the design cues from the original, from the 1970s.
Yep.
And I'm fine with that. I think they've done a great job of giving it a modern taste. And I just think it looks great. And I think a lot of people feel that way. The fact that you can go out and get one that has a decent interior with good tech, with gobs of power, or you can get the V6. Yeah, people are obviously buying them. So if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Right. Clearly they're doing something right because they're outselling their two major competitors. So you can't really judge them.
Podcast@motor1.com. Email us. Comment on our YouTube videos that go up every Friday. Comment on the articles that go up every Friday. And we want to hear from you. We're a little down on emails and comments. We're going to have a few to read. I know people are busy, and totally. I know there's a lot going on in the world right now. We recognize that there are many things that might be concerning to some people that are not really automotive related, but we want to help you through it all. So listen to the podcast. Hopefully enjoy what we're talking about. and give us a little bit of feedback. Give us your thoughts. Give us your opinions. Bruce, do you have some comments right now ready to
I
go?
do. I have a comment from frequent commenter Ted Adam Green. This is responding to last week's episode. He typed this up 2 days ago as of the time I'm reading it. Great ramble, and you all never need a guest, as the two of you are doing just fine as you are. Ted, I super appreciate that. It's always fun, though, to have a guest just to bounce stuff off of. Smith and I, we're buddies. We've worked together for several years now, and we kind of know each other's personalities. So having a guest, it just invites that kind of that chaotic element where I say something and I don't necessarily know what I'm going to get back, and that's always kind of fun. But I appreciate the sentiment. And
I do as well. And let me just say that a little behind the scenes, this episode, I mean, we generally plan some things out ahead of time. This episode is really kind of on the fly because we did have the unfortunate schedule change with our guests. So
yeah, we thought we were going to have a guest up until about 2 hours ago.
This one feels far more organic than I think either one of us have ever done. So hopefully it's coming through in a positive way.
Totally. So let me keep going here. The BMW XM is a hot mess, and you all nailed it. They didn't put their pencils down soon enough, overly designed. It's a beast, and maybe not in a great way. At some point, these very rich people are going to start being a bit discriminating. I don't think you're right there. I think rich people are never discriminating, but maybe I'm wrong there. This or the new Ferrari SUV, hands down, the Ferrari looks better, and it's only double the price. Lols. Not sure who's going to plunk down the money for the BMW XM. This might be their first mistake in a while. Ted, did you look at the front of the BMW M4 and the M3? Anyway, unless they're making so few that they still sell out. And yeah, they already had the sold out, but in a bad way. But in the bad way of that term, as in they sold out to do bad things. So I love that comment. Fantastic comment. Love it.
Yes, keep sending them in. Keep making us think. Keep us on our toes. Let's move forward here from this one, because we're going to try to talk about something that might be a little upsetting to some people. If you're listening,
no,
possibly
it's silly.
Possibly, if I pull out my devil's hat and I put my devil's hat on, I might get some hate mail. Let's set this up. Bruce, you wrote an article.
I did. Here, let me share it
on a fabulous Porsche 911.
Hold on. Let me get this shared up.
And I know you're bringing that up. Go to Motor One Podcast on YouTube, if for no other reason than to look at this gorgeous 964 era 911 Cabriolet. The thing is just, it's pretty from every angle. Those big, beautiful eyes for the headlights, the whale tail, and it's 500 horsepower, but not from a flat six.
Nope. Not even from an engine, from an electric motor. So
this is
electric. It is electric. This is from a company called Everati. They are based out of
shaking.
They are based out of Oxfordshire in the UK. They have been doing EV conversions like this for a while. We covered a GT40 conversion that they did. They also have coupe and Targa versions of the 911, and they're just now kind of getting to the convertible version. Like Smith said, you can either get it with 440 horsepower or 500 horsepower. I don't know the price difference, but for a 60 horsepower difference, I don't know why you wouldn't get the more powerful one. And what that gets you is 0 to 60 less than 4 seconds. It's got a 62 kilowatt hour battery, and that gets you around 200 miles. And what makes this interesting is they are going to be offering these both in the United States and in the UK/Europe. The ones for UK and Europe, they're going to be coming from the Oxfordshire facility. The ones for the US, let me get this company's name right. I believe it's Aria. Hold on. I wrote this story. I should know this. Yeah. Aria Group, which is based out of Irvine, California, will be building them. And so they will also be available in the US. And these are ground up. They take a 964, 911 generation, which for anyone who doesn't know, that's late 80s to early 90s. I believe it's like 89 to 94, but some Porsche person will tell me if I'm wrong, but it's right in there. They take that as a donor car. They put all of the electric stuff in. And one of the interesting things they do is that they do make that theoretically reversible. So these are cars that are gaining value. Air-cooled 911s in general, anyone who's followed that market, they are just stupid expensive.
That's an understatement. These things are off the rails because I believe the 964 is the final air-cooled generation.
No, 993 is the final air-cooled generation.
That's right. The 993. Okay, that's what comes after this. My mistake.
Yep.
My mistake.
Yep.
Send your hate mail, podcast@motorone.com. Apologies there. But yeah, the values for all the air-cooled 911s are up, especially the later generation.
Exactly. So you can, if someone bought this and did the conversion, they make it so that it would be reversible and you could put the air-cooled flat six in. Like I said, they make 500 horsepower and 369 pound-feet of torque. To put that in perspective, the original output from a 3.6 liter air-cooled flat six, 250 horsepower, 229 foot-pounds of torque. So you basically double the horsepower and what, 2/3? A good chunk more torque as well. I can't do the math that quickly in my head, but
you do lose that iconic flat six sound.
You do. You totally do. But yeah, they haven't announced a price for this, but we covered the coupe version earlier, and those conversions are 250,000 pounds, as in 250,000 English pounds. I don't know. We don't know what the US price on this is. But kind of put that in your, it's certainly not less than that. But we wanted to use this as a starting point for a conversation. What vehicle would Smith and I take and do an electric conversion of? What's a vehicle that's out there that maybe you love the design of, maybe there's something we love about it, but throw a different engine in it, put an electric engine in it.
Are we going to limit this to just one, Bruce?
We don't have to. I've got one that immediately comes to mind that I told you before the show, so I'm going to need some time to think of another one, but no, we don't have to limit it to one. I'm good.
As we said earlier, this is a very organic show. This is a very organic podcast we're doing right now. We came up with this idea just before we started recording, so I don't have any images or anything pulled up, but I certainly have some ideas. And if you're a regular listener, you know that I have no problem with an EV future. I love my internal combustion engines. I have a very loud V8 that's sitting in my garage right now, and I enjoy driving it. But I also have no qualms whatsoever of getting into an EV that's just stupid fast and hearing the whistles and the whines of all that electricity doing its thing and creating a really good, exciting, dynamic driving experience. And yes, it does exist in an EV, despite what the naysayers might say. So, as we've been thinking about this and talking about this, my first project would want to just, I'll just say it. I want to electrify a demon. Go ahead, send
a modern demon, not an original demon.
Podcast@motorone.com. I would like to take the Dodge Challenger SRT Demon. We'll pull out the Hellcat. We'll pull out the special tune that you need to actually get it to 840 horsepower. We'll pull all of that out. We'll just stuff a big old electric motor in there. We'll send the power to the back wheels. We'll go 8 seconds. And we'll do it silently. And I know that's going to just infuriate people. I would want to do that. I said earlier, the Challengers, the current Challengers, they just look fantastic. I still love the way they look. They're already heavy, so let's make it a little bit heavier with some battery power and some electric power. And let's just go and have some fun. We don't necessarily need to have the 6.2 screaming down the track. Sure, it's part of the experience. But I would want to make that and build that and just go out and have some fun with it. And admittedly, I'd be a little bit of a troll. I do have a little bit of that in me. I'm a short guy, so I'm kind of trollish already anyways. I would just go out and I would have fun. I would enjoy running that thing 9-8 seconds down the quarter mile. I would enjoy not putting a drop of fuel into it. I would enjoy watching people's heads explode that I actually did that to a Hellcat powered Dodge Challenger, that I did it to a rare Demon. I would be a little bit of a troll. So sorry, not sorry. Maybe a little sorry. No, I'm not sorry. I'm not
You're
sorry.
not sorry a bit.
But my choice is an electric Demon.
I think that's fair. Like, you know, you're being.
I'm being trolly.
You're being a jerk a little bit. I was trying to think of a PG way to say that. You're being a jerk a little bit, but also I see where you're coming from. Like,
if for no other reason than to say, okay, it's not making the sound, but you've got nothing to fear. Look how fast this thing is.
exactly.
Look how much fun we're having. It doesn't have to come with a V8 roar. I enjoy it as much as anybody else, but I also enjoy going fast. We're not shifting gears in this car. So let's just go out. Let's put in the electric power and let's just go for it.
I can't fight you there, certainly. I went a completely different direction, though. And that is, I thought about what is a vehicle that I love the appearance of, but everything about its powertrain scares me to death because it is as unreliable as basically any vehicle that has ever been made.
It's not that unreliable.
Really now.
You just need to maintain it. We talked about this ahead of time, so I know what he's going to say.
You know what I'm going to say.
That I really love, with an engine that I really love. That's a Jaguar XJ.
That XJS, yeah.
XJS with a V12.
Right. Traditionally, it would have a V12 under that big long hood or bonnet if you're in Britain. And it is just a rat's nest. Here. You know what?
Yeah, we know what it looks like under the hood, and it's complicated to work on.
Maybe you know what it looks like under the hood. I'm going to pull up a picture here for folks so they can see what it looks like. Hold on. Let this load.
Now, I mean the V12. I know they offer that in the 6 as well. And
much later. They didn't do that until the 90s.
This is a car that I'm going to have one of these days, and possibly even one of these days soon. It's a car that I don't just want to own. I want to get familiar with it like I got familiar with the shows, because it's kind of a specialty thing. And just be able to rent on it myself, work on it myself. Yeah, you know what? There are wires and hoses and things running everywhere. For me, it would be part of the experience, and I love it. But
imagine taking a car, though, that's that attractive on the outside and removing all of that complication. That just put an electric motor, or what you would probably end up doing actually is put batteries under the hood, put an electric motor at the rear axle, and it would look just as good. It's a very, very attractive vehicle, especially by 70s standards, which, you know, we talk about the Malaise era, stuff like that a lot. The XJS was a really good looking vehicle in its time. It just had just a boat anchor of a V12 under the hood. And I think an electric motor would make that vehicle so much better.
Yes, there's a lot of silence coming from me because
okay.
I mean, I guess now maybe I know how the Demon people feel. Because it's like, I mean, to me,
look at that.
That engine, I don't care how it looks. I care about how it sounds and how it drives.
You're right. It does sound great, but
that engine makes that car, right?
I disagree. I don't think it does.
That engine, nobody, but like you said, they came out with a 6-cylinder version later on. Nobody wants that one.
At the very, very end, at like 90, 92, something like that.
Yeah, nobody wants that one.
I do.
It's an attractive car.
That's the good one.
Having the V12 in that just kind of makes that car. Could you say that having the Hellcat and the Demon makes the Demon? Because I mean,
you could.
I mean, the Hellcat. I mean, that's that's in all kinds of different challenges, right?
Sure, it is.
So I don't know. Maybe I understand a little bit how the demon people feel.
Okay, let's do one each. Keep in mind, folks, I have not prepared a second example. And Smith, I don't know if you have either. So we're going to be surprising each other with this.
I'm still trying to decide which way I want to go. Do you have one picked out?
No, I literally don't.
Okay, well, then let me jump in with this.
I have to pull a picture up. I have one that's going to make you really angry that I would actually pick. Let me see if I can find a picture. Do you have a picture already of yours?
No.
Okay.
I'll be honest. I'm trying to decide between something from the 80s.
Yeah.
And
that's what I'm looking at. You and I might be looking at the same car.
And something from the 30s.
Okay. Mine is definitely not from the 30s.
And I think I have to go with the one from the 80s.
I cannot find an underhood picture. I will have to do a Google search, but I will throw this out first. And this is one that you are going to be so mad at me for picking. But once I actually find the image that I'm looking for, I hope the people watching will understand. The 79 to 1983 Datsun 280ZX.
I'm fine with that.
A car that looks fantastic. Especially for its age. I need to find a good underhood image of one of these. It is just a rat's nest of wires and vacuum tubes and ugliness. Like, it's such a good looking car that and it's not the car's fault, absolutely. It's just because of, the emission stuff at the time that it just got bogged down by all of this here. I've got an image here. So for anyone watching on YouTube, you're about to see, if there are any children present, you probably shouldn't show them this. It might give them nightmares.
It's not that bad.
Oh, no.
It is not that bad. I remember having a conversation a while ago on my take on the 280.
I think you and I had this. You said it wasn't that bad, and I'm like, oh my God, then what is that bad? Like, it's just it looks like a plate of spaghetti of just wires over the engine, and you can see.
Yeah, you can see everything. Exactly. It's functional. Would you rather have Would you rather have that or a plastic engine cover?
Is neither an option?
Well, I mean, if you're going to yank it out, put an electric motor in there, that's the option.
No. I can go pop the engine on my wife's Subaru or my Mini right now. There is not a plastic engine cover to be found, and it's a lot cleaner than that.
Well, it is a bit messy. But I mean,
you're right. Looking at it, I will. Full disclosure, I remembered it looking worse than that.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't look that bad.
I mean, we have fuel rails there. We have spark plug wires running there. I see coolant hoses running there. I see. Keep in mind too, this is at a point where automakers are really trying to figure how the hell are we going to make an engine that has any sort of power while meeting these new emissions and economy standards.
Exactly. The one we're looking at here, if you're watching it, this is a 1978 model year. This is like the most Malaysiest of the Malays.
I mean, how many vacuum lines are we looking at there? I shudder to think how many
dozens.
I mean, so many. Yeah, but it's still it's not that bad.
I guess, but it's just that, again, here, I'm going to show the exterior. It is a very attractive car, and I just want to get rid of all of the powertrain issues, and I just want to drive that. Like, I know people, younger people, let's be honest, I looked at the YouTube analytics. Younger people don't listen to this show. In fact, most of them are older than you and I, Smith, so I don't have to say that. But like, yeah, the bumpers maybe aren't great. Maybe like that chrome B pillar is iffy. But in general, that's a really attractive car, in my opinion.
Totally is. Always
like,
I would have that over the 240.
I'm not on board with that, but
I'd have the 300 over all of them.
300 turbo every day of the week.
Yeah.
The first Z31, not the one you think.
Yeah, the
people out there, when we say 300 turbo, not the one you think
31.
You mean the earlier one.
The 80s.
Yeah.
With the T-tops. Yes.
Yes. Here, I might.
That would be my choice.
I don't got anywhere to be here. Just for any vamp for me real quick. I will pull up a Z31 turbo image
I will offer a hint to you and to the listeners before we get to the end to my pick. Mine is also Japanese.
Okay. Here, real quick, for anyone out there, this is what Smith and I are talking about. That is a Z31 turbo.
Z31.
Wedge up, baby.
Wedge at its finest.
Yep.
Wedge at its finest.
Okay, but what's your second pick?
Okay, well, I was thinking about an Auburn Boattail Speedster replica.
No. Okay.
Because
I just went through all the phases of grief in that. I'm like, no, and I'm like, yeah, that's going to be hard to tune.
Well, that's why I
kind of get it.
Replica, because it's just such a fantastic looking car. It's just one of the prettiest cars ever, and I could never, ever, ever do something like that to an original. But there are plenty of replicas out there. Give me a replica. I mean, go ahead. Keep the big exhaust ports up at the front, but just
you would have to keep those. Just
for an electric motor, just give this weird sound. But what I am going to choose here, that I was choosing between that and give me just a second here to get my settings. Did they change the settings on this, Bruce?
They did. It's called presentation now, and it threw me off at first. If anyone wasn't paying attention, I too had some issues.
Well, thank you for that. And this is a car this could be the only car that would have the sound you would expect it to have with an electric motor.
You picking a DeLorean? You don't pick a DeLorean.
This is a 1980 Subaru DL.
Yeah,
like the one that Jackie Chan drove in Cannonball Run.
Which
had the whistle sound anyways in the movies, right?
Totally.
Could you imagine how much fun that would be? Just a little Subaru. I mean, do it up black with the graphics on the side. Subaru 4-wheel drive. Just a little hatchback Subaru. It's just a 1980 Subaru DL. Just very simple, basic car. Stick an electric motor in there. Drive around.
You need two because you need one driving the front and one driving the back. That way you got real all-wheel drive.
There you go. So 2 electric motors. I think that would be hilarious. That would be such a fun car to take around to these car shows. It's like, oh well, this is like the Jackie Chan, what Jackie Chan drove in Cannonball Run. It even sounds like it. Look at that. How cool. Put a little jet engine in the back. Where you open up the hatch and the jet engine pops up. Little Cannonball Run love there. That's a car where I don't think anybody could argue about the sound of an electric motor in a car.
Well, also, none of those, most of those have rusted away so poorly. Like, if you just kept it alive, I think there'd be enough people happy that, I think you'd be doing okay. So, yeah, I think that's a good pick.
So, I mean, that's my choice there. I was trying to think, okay, I went the route of the troll with the demon. I'll admit that. I would enjoy driving that, but I would also really enjoy just watching people's head explode. So what's the opposite of that? We know that the chief argument, at least that I hear from my car enthusiast friends, are that electric cars are soulless. They don't make any, they sound like an appliance. There's nothing exciting about them. Okay, well, what's one vehicle where you really couldn't make that argument? Mm-hmm. And I think it's going to be the 1980 Subaru DL, like the one used in Cannonball Run, driven by Jackie Chan. Just the weird little Japanese car that made the weird noise, but was fast as hell.
Again,
perfect.
No argument.
Perfect. Match made in heaven. What do you think, folks? Podcast@motor1.com. Send us your picks of what you would swap an electric motor into. You can also comment on our videos that go up on Motor One Podcast, YouTube every Friday. You can comment on our articles that go up on motor1.com every Friday. You should always be going to motor1.com to catch all of your latest automotive news, including new vehicle debuts and occasional strange stories that might grab your attention. We're going to try to talk about those a little bit more, I think, going forward, just because I think there's some interest there when we have the chance.
Yeah, totally. And again, so we intended to have a guest up until about not too long before we started recording, a matter of hours or minutes, kind of roughly. So, and we hope to have that person back on.
That's still going to be in the works. That's still going to be in the works. We know what's going on there. That's still going to be in the works. Try to get it next week. If not, it'll be very shortly in the weeks to come. We've teased it a little bit. There is a Hollywood connection. There is a Hollywood connection with a very notable car from the 1980s, and these guys have a very prominent YouTube channel that is just fantastic. Their investigative powers are amazing, and they are super fans to the nth degree, and we're excited to have them.
And then also, for any of you longtime listeners, we had Clint Simoni and Jeff Perez on last year talking about the Motor One Star Awards. And That's Motor One will be doing the Star Awards again. And tentatively, we will be doing a preview of that during the last week of October. Again, things shift around, but it'll be either, if it's not the last week of October, it'll probably be the first week of November. It'll be somewhere kind of around in that time. But Motor One will be doing the Star Awards again. And so just, kind of cross-promoting things. We'll be doing a preview. And then once all of our editors are out in California and drive all sorts of everything fun, we will have someone back on and kind of talk about the results of that. So that'll probably be, like I said, late October, early November for one episode, and probably, I don't know, late November, early December for the other one. We'll see, but look forward to that. Those guys are going to be going out to California again and driving cool stuff, and they will be on the show telling us all about it.
A lot on their list. They're going to be driving all kinds of vehicles. We're very excited to have an awards presentation of this caliber. There aren't many outlets that are able to do this. So have it all together with some of the best people in the business driving, giving us their feedback. Definitely don't want to miss that.
Yeah, and last year it was really fun. I still think about Clint Simoni talking about that F-150 hybrid with the big they call it Pro. What do they call it?
Pro Power on board.
Power, thank you. Pro Pilot was on my mind, but that's their driver assist system. Pro Power generator inverter on board, and how basically it wasn't necessarily the vehicle that won for them overall, but it was also their de facto mobile production area, because it had
just do all vehicle for every situation. Yeah.
So that was really interesting. So we can kind of get insights like that, and it'll be fun to hear. But as always, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. We appreciate all of our listeners. We appreciate all of our comments. Thanks, everybody. And like we just talked about, we've got some fun stuff coming up in the future. Sorry, this one we kind of had to call an audible. Just kind of, sometimes people get under the weather. It totally happens. It's been Smith and I, it's happened. So, but we will be back next week, hopefully with a guest, and we appreciate you all. So bye-bye, everybody.
See ya. Bye-bye.